Alright guys, welcome to deck tech number 2. I was going to do a different deck, but if you're here, you're probably familiar with Hakeem, a friend of mine. This week on his channel he's doing artifacts, so I figure it'd be kind of cool if I did it too, just so you can get a little contrast and compare with different builds and my style versus his versus other people, or whatever. So anyways, let's do a quick run through the actual contents of the deck. 3 Myrsmith, 2 Sanctum Gargoyles, 4 Vapor Snags, 4 Etherium Sculptors, 3 Courier's Capsules, 2 Master of Etherium, 1 Esperzoa, 1 Bident of Thassa, 4 Glaze Fiends, 2 Traveler's Amulets, yeah, we'll get to that in a bit, 1 Hall of Triumph, 3 Tower Gargoyles, 4 Esper Cormorants, and 4 Tidehollow Strix. Alright, so obviously with it being an artifact themed build, you want to pack as many artifacts in as possible, or things that are good with artifacts. So we'll start with the Myrsmith. Just the 2-1, basically the artifact version of the Young Pyromancer. Except every time you cast an artifact spell, you gotta pay an extra 1, and you get a 1/1 token. Now, what the hell is that good for? Well, your 1/1 tokens are not only good with the Master of Etherium, they're good for the Master of Etherium, since they themselves are artifacts. And then also, if you cast an artifact, and then make an artifact token off the Myrsmith, that's a double trigger for the Glazed Fiend. They cannot be buffed by Hall of Triumph, though, because those things are colorless, so that's kind of a downer. Extra dudes to trigger the Bident if you get that far. And sometimes you want to keep your Esperzoa around without affecting your board too much. So you can bounce a token if it comes to that, if you really want the 4/3 in play. Or you don't want to bounce something like a Sculptor, or you don't have anything really cheap to bounce. Big drawback, the Myrsmith itself is not an artifact. So other than that, that's what it does. So we do the max copies of 3. Sanctum Gargoyle is like an Eternal Witness for artifacts. Costs 4, 2/3 flyer. Most lists I see just automatically jam 4. But I mean, if you're drawing like 2 or 3 Sanctum Gargoyles, it's like, what are you doing? Just gonna loop Sanctum Gargoyles together? I mean, I think 2 is fine. I mean, you have enough early game, and then, you play this on turn 4, turn 5. Invariably, something dies. And then, you have the combo with Esperzoa. You return Sanctum Gargoyle back to your hand, recast it, get something else back, and on and on and on. Other things you can get back, though, are Courier's Capsules once they've been cracked, and Traveler's Amulets if, for some reason, you need more land at that point in time when you're casting Sanctum Gargoyles. But it is also itself an artifact, so there you go. Now the other, there's only, let's count here. Aside from the 22 lands, there are only 7 non-artifact cards in the deck. So 31 cards that have the subtype artifact. 4 of those cards are Vapor Snags. Now you want some kind of interaction with your opponent, and since the deck is base blue, I figure Vapor Snag, since it's, it's just 1 blue, it's cheap, and it solves, a lot of the problems that your deck has. Like maybe you can't race some massive thing with 5 auras on it, or there's an Arbor Colossus in the way, or a Baneslayer in the way. I mean, you get it out of your way, since most of your guys are flyers. And then, you get your damage in. Plus, every now and again, that 1 point of damage does matter. So it allows you to keep tempo. You build your board. Hopefully it doesn't get wiped by an Anger, which really, no matter how you build an artifact deck, you can't make it strong against Anger of the Gods. Like, maybe if you play Galvanic Juggernaut or whatever. But other than that, it'd be really tough. So, I don't want to dip into, like, white removal or black removal, because, like I said, blue is the base color. There's most of blue. And, that other removal gets expensive. Like, I tried toying around with Ulcerate, and that 3 life loss actually matters a lot. Because early on, like, you can't really play too good a defense against like little weenies like tokens. Like, you know, you don't want to trade your Strix for a 1/1 token. Glaze Fiends can't block. We're not running any Cloud Shifts or Stoneforge Mystic, so there's really no way to make a defensive Glaze Fiend, unfortunately. So these guys will just always be attacking, or they will just be chump blocking. Unless you have a Hall of Triumph set to black, which doesn't normally happen, usually want to set it to blue, or you have a Master of Etherium out, and then it'll be sitting around blocking as a 1/2. But that's what Vapor Snag does for you. Forces through damage. You know, if they want to spend their turn casting Baneslayer Angel, and you just bounce it, and, you know, that's 10 mana to replay it. Hopefully you can come up with some way to beat that board. I mean, you don't always have to bounce the Baneslayer right away. So you can Alpha Strike, wait for the Baneslayer to block the Baneslayer itself. Or, you know, someone swings in with the Baneslayer, and that's going to affect the race. You just block with your dude and bounce it. So, because in a situation like that, against an attacking Baneslayer, like if you bounce their Baneslayer, they can just replay it post-combat, and then, you know, you're back to square one trying to get through. Well, you know, you can block their Baneslayer, bounce your dude, keeping their Baneslayer on the field, and then hopefully you can punch through for whatever amount of damage you need. Doesn't come up too much, but something to keep in mind. All right, moving on. Etherium Sculptors, all 4. We're only running 22 lands with 2 Traveler's Amulets, but in a kind of sense, this guy's a land too. Depending on, you know, how many Sculptors you have in play, plus what you have in hand, you know, it generates an extra 1 to 3, maybe 4, who knows, colorless mana that turn. Every turn. So, and it itself is an artifact, has all the other synergies. Courier's Capsules, I don't run all 4. I think 3 is the sweet spot. I had 2 and a Darksteel Axe, but I got rid of the Darksteel Axe for the 3rd capsule. This lets you refill. You know, it's an artifact, triggers everything else. You actually don't have to crack it if you don't need to, because if it just stays on the field, it buffs the master. Busts him. I don't know what that means. And if you do crack it, it's something to get back with Sanctum Gargoyle for keep the cards flowing if for whatever reason your flyers can't do the job or your draw is shitty or whatnot. Alright, we have the 2 Master of Etheriums, which he buffs all the other artifacts, +1/+1, so the only creatures in the deck that won't get buffed by him are the Myrsmiths, but the tokens will get buffed, and every other creature in the deck gets buffed. And every other creature in the deck buffs him, with the exception of the Myrsmith, but the Myrsmith makes tokens to buff him, which in turn get buffed by the Master, so that little non-bow, the Myrsmith's ability makes up for the non-bow between the 2. And also, you know, you can leave permanents like Courier's Capsule in play, Traveler's Amulet in play. You don't always have to crack them if you need Master at, you know, a certain power and toughness. And then, you know, stuff that's always going to sit into play like Bident and Hall of Triumph will also buff the Master itself. 1 Esperzoa. Going back to cramming as many Sanctum Gargoyles as you can in a deck. I feel the same way about cramming as many Esperzoas as you can in the deck. Any double Esperzoa draw is just completely jacked up unless you have like Sculptors in play or like just a bunch of, you know, things you can bounce like Darksteel Axe or Adventuring Gear if you're into that. I don't know why you play Adventuring Gear in a 22 land deck or Traveler's Amulet or whatnot. But I find just, you know, having 1's enough because, you know, you do want to bounce stuff to trigger Glazed Fiends, re-trigger Myrsmith. And, you know, it is a 4/3 flyer. With the Wombo combo, bounce Sanctum Gargoyle. I mean, it's okay. I don't think it's essential. Like, I don't think you should run all 3. I don't even think you should run 2, obviously. But I think, you know, having access to that effect is fine. Because a 4/3 flyer is a pretty big deal. But also, its drawback is very real sometimes, depending on your board. 1 Bident Thassa, anytime one of your dudes does damage, you draw a card. So that's another one of our sources of card advantage. It is an artifact. I don't run 2 because that little word right there, legendary. It's actually not a little word. What was that, 4 syllables? 4 syllables, 9 letters. Anyways, the legendary artifacts I usually only run 1 of. Every now and again, you can use the ability, creatures your opponents control attack this turn if able. to eat something with a Strix, or something big like a Tower Gargoyle, or a massive Master of Etherium. So just keep in mind that this does have an additional ability besides you drawing cards. For Glazed Fiends, one of the big reasons to even get into a third color. The biggest weakness to this deck, besides just folding to Anger the Gods like 90% of the time, is the mana base. But I feel, having black for access to the 4 Strix and the 4 Glazed Fiends, they are good enough that it's worth it. Anyways, anytime an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, it gets +2/+2. Like I said, it's going to be a purely offensive creature. The only time it's ever going to play defense in this deck is if it's buffed by Master of Etherium, or it's chump blocking something. But, we have a lot of ways to trigger it. We have the Myrsmith tokens, Sanctum Gargoyle. I mean, there are times, you pop an early Traveler's Amulet, you Sanctum Gargoyle, getting back Traveler's Amulet on turn 5, replay Traveler's Amulet, and that's 4 damage right there. It's not the worst thing in the world. I mean, obviously, you would like to get something else back besides the Traveler's Amulet from your Sanctum Gargoyle, but every now and again, we got some strict color requirements in this deck. Getting an Amulet back is worth it. And, you're still adding a 2/3 to the board and buffing the Glaze Fiend. So, your opponent's always got to, be aware that at any time this thing can be coming in between 2 and usually 2 and 4, very rarely 6. And then, you have the +1 bonus from the master. But most of the time, he's going to be a 2/3 or a 4/5 swing. We have the 2 Traveler's Amulets. I'm not really going to touch on this too much until we get into the mana base. But I was at 23 land, 1 Amulet, and I decided, 22 land, 2 Amulet is fine. So I also only run 7 of the tap lands. A lot of people, like I said, the mana in this deck is horrible. They just jam as many, Guildgates and Tri-lands as they can into the deck. I try to avoid that nonsense so we can play our shit in a timely manner. But I'll touch on that later. But again, it is an artifact. Has all the other artifact synergies I touched on earlier. 1 Hall of Triumph. It's another Lord effect. Usually 90% of the time it's set on blue, which is all but 9 of our creatures. And then plus the Myrsmith tokens. So Hall of Triumph set on blue, buff 4, 6, 7, 10, 14, 18 of our creatures. 18 of our 27, so I think that's fine. It can also be something you can bounce back with an Esperzoa and then replay and set it on black if you're trying to push in additional damage in the air with a Glazed Fiend. Because also, setting it on black, like, for your evasive creatures, like, doesn't affect Tower Gargoyle because it's black. It doesn't affect Strix because it's black. Only really affects the Esper Cormorants if you have to replay it as black. But I'd say just, if you go turn 2 Sculptor, I would, set this on blue. But again, it's a legendary artifact, so I only play 1. So I don't ever want to draw the second one. And it's not like essential to ever draw this either, but it's nice. Synergy with everything else. 3 Tower Gargoyles, big 4/4 flyer artifact with a highly restricted mana cost, but once you work around the mana problems in the deck, this guy's pretty good in the limited Duels 2015 metagame. Esper Cormorants, slightly less powerful Gargoyle, but still a 3/3 flyer for 4. The mana is a little bit easier, and pretty much serves the same purpose as Tower Gargoyle. Just, for a flyer, fairly beefy for its mana cost. And then finally, the Tidehollow Strix, 2/1 Flying Death Touch. Again, it's an artifact. And, as long as you're not facing down triplet Spirit tokens, most people aren't going to block. With most flyers in the game, I mean, is someone going to block this with a Stormbreath Dragon? No. I mean, not even an Arbor Colossus wants to block this. I mean, a Baneslayer can obviously block it pretty well. Most things with reach or any other flyers are not going to want to tangle with this. And nor if it just sits back, they're not going to want to attack into it. I mean, tokens really don't care about it, because you don't want to trade your 2/1 for a 1/1. but for the most part, he's a solid dude and worth getting into black for. So let's check out the lands. 22 lands. We have 4 plains, 8 islands, 3 swamps, 3 arcane sanctums. Obviously, wish I could run more. Wish I could run all 4, but we only have access to 3. 2 Azorious Guildgate and 2 Dimir Guildgates. As you can see, no Orzhov lands because it is a base blue deck, and if I'm gonna play tap lands, I want all those tap lands to not only have my splash colors, if you want to call them that, but to also have my parent color, which is blue. And with those lands are the Traveler's Amulet, so you can fix your mana on time. If you need to cast Tower Gargoyle, you kept the hand, which was blue black, and you don't have white, so you can later on go get your white with that, and maybe trigger a Glaze Fiend or a Myrsmith on the way out, on the way to fixing your mana. So I feel, with the 2 Traveler's Amulets and with the curve of this deck and the mana requirements, I think you get away with 22 lands, 7 of them come into tap, which is a third, a little under a third. So there's 11, 13, 15 total blue sources, 9 total white sources, and 8 total black sources. Or we have really 8 black cards. I mean, actually 11, because the Tower Gargoyle. I mean, another good reason to be in the black is because of him. So 11 total black mana symbols, but we do have 2 sources of fixing for that. But there's about 1 more white mana symbol than black, because I think it's more important to get the Myrsmith out earlier than it is, the Strix. So a little bit more white than black, and then obviously most of it is blue. Now let's look at stuff we didn't play. Sharding Sphinx. I mean, I've been playing Duel since the beginning, since 2009, and I remember Sharding Sphinx in the Artifact deck. You tinker for Sharding Sphinx when you already have out some other nonsense, and then you just win on the spot. But, in this metagame with the shell we have, I just found him to just kind of be mostly win more. I mean, okay, what is he if you're not triggering his ability? He's just an overcosted air elemental, a 4/4 flyer. I mean, he is an artifact. But, if you're able to start, triggering off of him, like, you should be in pretty good shape already. That's 6 mana. I just found that the deck runs smoother, getting the Cormorants in there rather than trying to fit him into play. This Salvage Slasher, I mean, aside from, do you want to put more black in your deck and make the mana even worse than it already is? I mean, look at this. +1 for each artifact card in your graveyard. Like, who knows what artifact card's going to be in your graveyard at the time? So you're already playing 2 for a 1/1. I mean, even as a 2/1 or 3/1 or even a 4/1, like, who cares? Like, at best, it has a draw in combat with everything. I mean, unless, like, you're really into dubstep and you like Skrillex or whatever, like, I wouldn't put him in your deck. I think he's awful. This thing, I don't even know what to say to this. It's like some PSA to not smoke in bed or wherever she's at, but we're not going to get into that. Hot Soup. If you watched the previous Jeskai game, I think it was game 2, yeah, you'll know how good this card is. Not good. But something we can talk about is the Darksteel Axe. It is a 1-cost artifact. It's pretty good, easy to bounce with a Esperzoa. Costs 0 when you have an Etherium Sculptor out. Big thing with this is other than that equip cost. That is a big deal, in a deck that, wants to spend additional mana to make Myrsmith tokens or needs mana up to crack Courier capsules, wants to play multiple things in the turn to trigger Glazed Fiends. I just think that equip cost of 2 is just too much. Like, if it was 1, then yeah, I'd probably put it in. But, playing it for 1 or 0, but then equipping it for 2, and don't even get me started, like, when you go to equip it and then just kill your dude. I mean, you just get set back so far, and I don't really think the benefit is worth it. I mean, yeah, you can make your Glaze Fiends into 2/1, so they can attack without triggering, or they can sit back and block one thing before it dies. But I found I haven't missed it. Like, I played with it a lot at the beginning. When the artifact expansion first came out, and I was just like everyone. I was like, ooh, all Sanctum Gargoyles, and ooh, all Esperzoas, and get some Darksteel Axes in there. Oh, let's finally play a Stoneforge Mystic and whatnot. But now that I've actually stopped to think about it, I just don't think it's worth it. We're not playing Elixir in this deck. Adventuring Gear, like I said, you want to play Adventuring Gear in a 22-land deck, go nuts. I would never play Adventuring Gear in a format without fetch lands, where you play a land, and you crack it, and you fetch another land to double trigger it. I just don't think it's good. Here's our other 2 Travelers Amulet. We're not going to run 4. That's ridiculous. This other stuff, no. I mean, Cobbled Wings, what are you going to give flying? Almost everything flies. Like, you want to give a Etherium Sculptor flying? Like, the best thing to give flying would be a Master of Etherium. But in most games, if your Master of Etherium is just living and has trouble getting through, you're in good shape. Armillary's Spear, I don't even know what that word means. I'll look it up one of these days. But, Traveler's Amulet's fine, 1/1 for 1 land. This is like 2 Traveler's Amulets in 1 card. But, that cost, that's 4 mana without any Etherium Sculptor discounts. And even with the double Sculptor discount, I mean, that's still, 2 lands. And, it's not ramping you, it's just putting it in your hand. It's just, mana fixing and drawing cards, I guess. It's like a Courier's Capsule that just always draws you land. And, in this case, I would rather just have a Courier's Capsule that just draws me 2 random cards. I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, you can try it. I know some people swear by it, but I'm just going to swear that it's awful. This other stuff, let's say, like, you just wanted to play, like, Azorious artifacts. You lose Tower Gargoyle, you lose Strix, you lose Glazed Fiend. What would you put in their place? Maybe this guy? I mean, really? No. I mean, a Juggernaut, he'd be alright, but I'd rather have flyers than just a 5/5 with a vanilla 5/5 with, sometimes a very real drawback. I mean, you can either just, stonewall it with tokens all day, even though that'll cause it to untap, or you just get hit by it once. And then, they manipulate the board, through bounce spells or whatnot, and that thing will just never attack again. And we're getting to the expensive stuff. Like, I'm not going to get into specifics, but, with the low cost, relatively low cost build like this, I know there are 10/4 drops. Like I said, we have Mr. Discount over here. Like, I'm not going to get into why we're not running this expensive stuff. I don't think it belongs. So that's artifacts for you. I'll be playing this for at least 3 games later this week, and then you can compare and contrast my build and my play with Hakeem's build and Hakeem's plays. Alright, again, thanks for watching, and probably not today, probably tomorrow I'll have some gameplay videos up for you guys. Alright, take care.